Hello everyone, and welcome to today's discussion about the vestibular apparatus. This week we have been learning about the peripheral nervous system and its functions, such as its role in our senses. The role of the peripheral nervous system is to convert sensational signals into electrical signals that are then relayed to the brain for processing and interpretation. The vestibular apparatus is part of the workings of the ear, but plays an important role other than hearing capabilities. We will discuss its structure and its role in our daily lives. We will also discuss what happens if this structure is damaged or not functioning properly. Finally, we will briefly look at research being conducted on this structure. What is the vestibular apparatus, and what does it do? The vestibular apparatus is a specialized component of the inner ear that is essential for an individual's sense of equilibrium. Equilibrium is the sense of the body's orientation and of any motions the body goes through. In other words, equilibrium pertains to balance. This structure is responsible for the detection of changes in both position and motion of the head. Similar to the cochlea, which is responsible for hearing, the vestibular apparatus contains a substance known as endolymph in all of its components and is surrounded by perilymph. Endolymph is a fluid that is found in the membranous labyrinth of the inner ear. Perilymph is the fluid that is found between the membranous layer of the labyrinth and the bone that encloses it. Inside of the components of the vestibular apparatus are mechanoreceptors known as hair cells that respond to mechanical deformation. Depending on the direction in which these hair cells are manipulated by the movement of the endolymph, they can either depolarize or hyperpolarize the vestibular receptors. This sensory information that is sent to the brain does not reach the individual's conscious awareness level. There are two sets of structures of the vestibular apparatus, which we will discuss in turn. These are the semicircular canals and the otolith organs. The semicircular canals are made up of three fluid-filled bony channels and are positioned so they are at right angles from one another. These canals detect the rotational and angular accelerations or decelerations of the head. For example, they can detect the beginning and the end of a spinning motion, such as a somersault. Any form of acceleration or deceleration of the head causes the endolymph to move in at least one of the semicircular canals. The hair cell receptors of these structures are located in a swelling located at the base of the canal. This swelling is known as the ampulla. The hair cells are embedded in another structure known as the cupula. The cupula is an overlying cap-like gelatinous layer located at the bottom of the ampulla that protrudes into the endolymph of the canal and stretches to the roof of the ampulla. Force from the moving endolymph pushes against the cupula, which causes it to bow and the hairs to bend. Since the endolymph is not attached to your skull, anytime you move your head, the endolymph does not move in the direction your head is moving. In fact, there is a bit of lag between the motion of the head and the movement of the fluid due to a factor known as inertia. When the head is rotated, the fluid is initially left behind, but then moves in the opposite direction that the movement occurred. This is very similar to how your body moves when you are in a car. When you take a sudden left turn in a car, your body will move to the right as a result of inertia. During that time before the turn, your body adapted to the forward motion and was still in that forward motion when the turn took place. This resulted in your body moving in the opposite direction. The same occurs with the fluid in the semicircular canals. Just as this happens at the beginning of the movement, it occurs again when the motion stops. There is a lag between the stopping of motion and the movement of endolymph, resulting in the fluid continuing to move until it catches back up and returns to normal. The vestibular hair cell contains hairs that consist of one cilium known as a kinocilium. They also contain a grouping of between 20 to 50 microvilli known as the stereocilia. The stereocilia are arranged in descending height from the taller kinocilium and are linked together by structures called tip links. When the endolymph pushes against the tip links, the stereocilia bend and pull on mechanically gated ion channels. Depending on whether this displacement opens or closes these channels, the hair cell will become either depolarized or hyperpolarized. If it bends toward the kinocilium, it will depolarize. If it bends away, then it will cause hyperpolarization. When there is no movement of the head, the hairs will straighten back to their neutral position. The hair cells synapse with afferent neurons. These afferent neurons join with other neurons from other structures in the vestibular region to form the vestibular nerve. Now we turn our attention to the otolith organs, which are sac-like structures that are housed inside of a bony chamber that is located between the semicircular canals and the cochlea. There are two otolith organs, the utricle and the saccule. The function of these organs is to provide information pertaining to the position of the head in relation to gravity. They also are used in the detection of changes in the rate of linear motion. The structure of the hair cells and endolymph are similar to those in the semicircular canals, although there is a specific distinction. Lying on top of the endolymph, found in the otolith organs, are tiny calcium carbonate crystals called otoliths, or in layman's terms, ear stones. These stones weigh down the fluid, making it heavier and providing it with more inertia. The distinction between the utricle and the saccule lies within the orientation of the hair cells. When an individual is placed in an upright position, the hairs in the utricle are situated vertically, and the hairs in the saccule are horizontal. The utricle sense when the head tilts in any direction that is not vertical. The hairs in the utricles are also displaced when the body changes position in a linear horizontal fashion. These movements can include walking forward, backward, or to the side. The saccules respond to tilts of the head that deviate from a horizontal position, such as when you get out of bed from a lying position. They also detect movements in the vertical plane, such as jumping up and down. Some individuals possess a high sensitivity to certain movements that activate the vestibular apparatus. These sensitivities can cause symptoms such as dizziness and nausea. This sensitivity to motions is known as motion sickness. I'm sure you or someone you know has experienced this sensation at some point, like on a long car ride, on a plane, or maybe on a roller coaster. Another condition that is associated with the vestibular apparatus is Meniere's disease. This is caused by an imbalance of fluids in the inner ear. An individual with this condition suffers from episodes of vertigo, a form of dizziness, a ringing in the ears, and loss of some of their hearing capabilities. Not many people know that it is possible for an individual to be born without vestibular function, as well as lose functions later in life. This loss of function, or lack of, is known as bilateral vestibular deficit, or BVD for short. There are roughly 500,000 patients in the US and Europe who suffer from complete BVD. Diagnosis of this condition is oftentimes missed due to there being no known classical cause, and the individual's hearing may not be affected. However, patients with this disorder suffer from physical incapabilities, problems with emotions, possibly from being unable to do certain things, and may have difficulties in social functioning. Scientists are working on the development of a vestibular implant, which is very similar to a cochlear implant. It consists of rigidly fixing motion sensors to the patient's head and the implantation of electrodes in the vicinity of the vestibular nerve endings to transmit electrical signals regarding motion to the brain. So far, the studies conducted have only focused on the restoration of the semicircular canal functions. And that concludes our discussion of the vestibular apparatus. As we have learned, the vestibular apparatus is very important in our everyday function. I hope that you found this video to be informative and that it has helped you along in your studies. As always, thank you for joining me today, and I wish you good luck in the rest of your studies.